Oseam. Oseam. Asiam ni siaya. Ai. Talashkwalawan. Quick snalats. Antasitia ama. Dumana. Queth. Synthalia islahotziam. The amath. Queth ansakalot islahotziam. Amid zap kutwilam. Tana tamoch. Chwanalmoch stalmoch. Greetings to our honored guests and my dear ones. I have good feelings in my heart to see all of you today. In our language called Hakkametnam, I said my name. I'm Chief Leah George Wilson. I told you who my parents are, and I told you who my grandparents are, because in our way, that information is important. My father is the hereditary chief for Tsleil-Waututh, as was my grandfather. And I welcomed you to our land of the Huelmoch Stammoch people. That's what we call ourselves in our language. Anthropologists have called us Coast-Salish, but we're Huelmoch people, we're Stammoch people. Thanking all of you for joining us today, welcoming all of you to our land. I would like to say to Women Deliver that we are so honored and proud to welcome all of you and the dignitaries, all of the presidents and Mr. Prime Minister. As I understand there's a princess or two in the room besides me and Wendy and Deb. I think the last song you heard is called the Good Woman song, Ait Slen Slenny, from Tsleil-Waututh. That's my community, and it was appropriate for us to sing that, our women, to sing that to you, to welcome all of the good women from the Women Deliver conference to our land. Haitsepka, thanking all of you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the shared territory of the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, Squamish peoples. Please feel free to sit and listen, and we look forward to sharing with you more about who we are and where we come from, about our people. I want to acknowledge my colleagues that are out there, Councillor Quaitlow, Carla George, and if you could just wave wherever you are, Councillor Deanna Lewis, and one of our health managers, Charmaine Johnson. I also want to acknowledge all of our drummers and singers that are here with us today and continue to share the teachings that they learned from their previous generation, the grandmothers and grandfathers. I also want to ask for one of our young members to come up with me here. And this is what it's about. It's about our younger generation. It's about holding each other up. It's about providing safety and protecting each and every one of us. Thank you. Beautiful young woman who can sing as far as you can hear. And that's what all of our relatives behind us are sharing and teaching our young ones, our manman, which we call children in our language. Today is a very significant day, which is why I wear my red dress. And those of you who are wearing a red dress, please stand up if you are wearing a red dress or a red sweater or anything red. Thank you for being here. Welcome, Women Deliver 2019. Oseam. Thank you.
Siem na siaya, Nemsen Tachtanat, Ait Swale. I say, welcome all my friends and relatives. My given name is Tachtanat, and it is a good day. It is a good day because all of you are here with us on our lands. the lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples who have been here for thousands of millennia, who have been the caretakers of the mouth of the Fraser River, who have ensured that the stewardship of these beautiful lands were taken care of. And we are honored to have all of the women from around the world to be joining with us here today. Natsamat and Squalawan, we are all one. We all come together in love to hold each other up. I want to acknowledge that I'm standing here with my sisters from Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh. We are one family who have been separated for hundreds of years, and we have come back to bring forward the traditional teachings of who we are as a peoples, a matrilineal society that respected the equality of women. I do need to share, my brother is the chief of our community, but he's a fisherman, and he said to tell you he's out taking care of his wife and his child and could not be here to join with us. I am going to only say one more thing, and that is, traditionally, as we welcome people into our community, we would go to the beach and acknowledge the dignitaries from the communities with a gift. We gave those gifts to the dignitaries in what they call the green room back here. But we also acknowledge, and it was a blanket that the three communities developed especially for this conference. And you will see the panel of it downstairs. And it's a panel with a beautiful weaving pattern in the back with my great-grandmother and your great-grandmother and your great-grandmother called Grandma Cole. And so what we did was we took the blanket, we took the picture of her, and we developed 8,000 cards so that each and every one of you can take home a little bit of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh love that we are presenting to you. I hope you will all go downstairs to the fueling station. And we are at booth 511, and receive your gift in the manner in which it's given to you. And we are honored to have every one of you on our lands, and we hope that you come back someday in the future and that we can get to know all 8,000 of you. Thank you very much. Namet kwa? You can sing? Yeah. You can sing?
Welcome to the stage, Women Deliver President and CEO. Nous accueillons sur la scène présidente et directrice générale de Women Deliver, Katja Iverson.
Can I just say wow? Wow, wow. Thank you to Canada for your leadership and for coming and continuing with us on a journey towards a gender-equal world. J'aimerais remercier le Canada pour son leadership. J'aimerais surtout remercier le Canada pour avoir poursuivi avec nous un magnifique parcours vers l'égalité de genre. Thank you to Vancouver for welcoming us to this beautiful city and beautiful center. To everyone who supported, donated, instigated, and co-created this conference. Without you, we would not be here. On behalf of Women Deliver, welcome to all of you, to dignitaries, old friends, new friends, and fellow change makers. What a journey we're on. Look at us. Welcome to the 8,000 people from 165 countries here in this room and in the fueling station downstairs. A special shout out to the 1,400 plus young people from around the corner of Erin. A shout out to all the first timers at a Women Deliver. Let's hear it. A shout out to the community activists. Give it up. And a thank you to the more than 100,000 people from 6 continents who have already been involved in a global dialogue and satellite sessions leading up to this event. And to the many, many thousands that's following right now via WD Live and social media. I feel all the power. We all have it. Hard power, soft power, big power, small power, old power, and young power. And when we use it smartly, boldly, and collaboratively, progress will follow. We're here to inspire the world to harness power for good. We're here to demonstrate the power of gender equality and to catalyze investments into the organizations that's making tomorrow better than today for and with millions of girls and women everywhere across the globe. And we will do this together. 3.5 days, that's plenty of time, isn't it? Revolutions have happened faster than that. We know that a gender equal world is healthier, wealthier, more productive, and more peaceful. In a gender equal world, everybody wins. But we are in a time of pushback against women's rights all over the world. But we stand up and we stand strong. We have the power of many and of justice, and we will not go backwards. It's time to strengthen political and financial investments in gender equality and the health and rights of girls and women, including our reproductive rights. It's time to step up the promises made, and it is time for change. Throughout this conference, we're going to keep asking you, how are you going to use your power for good? I know we'll all leave inspired for how to answer that question. You are part of a global movement, and we are an unstoppable force sending a rallying cry to the world for a more equal world. So Canada is one of the countries in the world that stepped it up for girls and women. That's why we're here. To celebrate what's working and to figure out how to go further. And so it is my great pleasure to introduce to you a great friend and fellow feminist, the legendary Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau.
Thank you, Katja. Hello, everyone. Bonjour. Bonjour, tout le monde. Welcome to Vancouver. What a great turnout for what I know will be a truly historic week. Thank you for being here, for making the trip, and for bringing your expertise and your ideas with you to Canada. I know we've got folks from around the world on the live stream too. This summit is truly bringing people together. I want to begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional Coast Salish territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples, and I thank them for their opening welcome. And of course, I also have to take a second to thank Katja for her kind introduction and mostly for her incredible, legendary leadership. Je tiens également à remercier tous ceux qui se sont mobilisés pour Women Deliver au cours de la dernière année. Activistes, leaders communautaires, féministes. C'est grâce à vous qu'on a réalisé des progrès. Merci d'attirer notre attention sur les écarts qui persistent. Plus que jamais, on a besoin de vous. I think you all have simultaneous interpretation on your chairs, so don't be shy about using it. On est au Canada. My friends, I can think of no better place for this summit than here in Canada. After all, we're a country built on diversity, a country that knows that we're stronger together, embracing our differences and using our collective power to drive change. As a father, I can say without a doubt that there's nowhere else I'd rather raise my daughter, Ella Grace, and my sons, Hadrian and Xavier. But the rights we enjoy in Canada, and the rights so many have enjoyed around the world, are not guaranteed. Progress can backslide. We're seeing it happen. Gender equality is under attack. And I can only imagine how hard it is to be a feminist on the front lines. But that's the history of women's rights. Every step forward is met by another pushback. Women routinely face misogyny, racism, and hatred. And for women living with disabilities, discrimination is all too often the norm, not the exception. In the age of social media, it's never been easier to taunt and spread abhorrent views that are increasingly creeping into our public debates. Individuals and interest groups are trying to roll back women's rights, and politicians are giving in to the pressure, shamefully campaigning to undo women's hard-won victories. That's a daunting reality to face, but my friends, we are not powerless. It's up to us to fight back. Women, men, and gender-diverse people, allies, neighbors, and communities, all of us standing together, all of us standing strong. We're here at Women Deliver because we believe in a better future. We're here because of the strength and determination of women who've seen injustice firsthand and refused to turn away. And now, their legacy falls to us, to all of you, to governments, to the grassroots, and to citizens. Mes amis, il reste beaucoup de travail à faire. Les femmes sont plus susceptibles que les hommes d'être victimes de violences et de vivre dans la pauvreté. Les femmes gagnent moins que les hommes pour le même travail. Partout dans le monde, des filles se battent encore pour leur droit d'aller à l'école. Des femmes meurent à la suite de maladies qu'on peut guérir. Et encore aujourd'hui, le droit fondamental d'une femme de choisir ce qu'elle veut faire de son propre corps est remis en question. Ce sont des défis majeurs auxquels les femmes sont encore confrontées. des défis majeurs qui ne vont pas disparaître tout seuls. Si on veut du changement, on doit l'exiger. In 2015, we committed to putting gender equality at the heart of everything we do as a government. We promised to address the very real changes facing women in Canada and in countries around the world. And that's meant grappling with issues like sexism and misogyny, racism and colonialism. These challenges are complex and layered. So we won't always get it right, but we will always keep trying. On sait qu'on ne peut pas commencer à s'attaquer à l'injustice si on ne comprend pas d'abord le concept de l'intersectionnalité. Une femme de couleur est confrontée à des obstacles spécifiques, des obstacles uniques et différents de ceux d'une personne LGBTQ2 qui, elle aussi, fait face à des préjugés qui sont différents de ceux d'une femme autochtone. On doit reconnaître que la discrimination prend plusieurs formes et on doit surtout agir pour y mettre fin. This morning, in fact, was another significant step toward justice for Indigenous women in Canada. For too long, Indigenous women and girls have experienced violence at a rate that is staggering when compared to non-Indigenous women. Just over a month after forming government, we announced the creation of a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls following the recommendation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. An inquiry that we launched based on the steadfast advocacy of families and survivors. We promised Canadians that we would start this process, a process that would ultimately chart a path for the future. Earlier this morning, the National Inquiry formally presented their final report, in which they found that the tragic violence that Indigenous women and girls have experienced amounts to genocide. The strength of the families and survivors who bravely shared their truths has shown us the way forward. We will do a thorough review of this report and develop and implement a national action plan to address violence against Indigenous women, girls, and LGBTQ and Two-Spirit people. Working with Indigenous partners to determine next steps, we will include Indigenous women and girls, the voices of LGBTQ and Two-Spirit people, and family members and survivors. Our country can and must do better, and we will. We know that it's time to put an end to violence against all women, including transgender, non-binary, and Two-Spirit people, which is why we launched the first ever national strategy on gender-based violence. And we know that advancing gender equality hinges on economic equality too. We will continue to demand that women and men receive equal pay for work of equal value, that everyone has a safe place to live, and that parents can share the joys and responsibilities of raising children. En tant que Canadiens, on refuse également de fermer les yeux sur les difficultés auxquelles sont confrontées les femmes au-delà de nos frontières. Grâce à notre politique d'aide internationale féministe, on continue d'aider les plus vulnérables. On appuie les efforts menés par les communautés visant à encourager l'autonomisation des femmes, que ce soit sur le plan social, politique ou économique. Parce que c'est un travail qui ne se limite pas juste à un investissement ou à une seule communauté. On doit intégrer l'égalité des sexes dans tout ce qu'on fait. Prenez par exemple le Conseil consultatif sur l'égalité des sexes qu'on a mis sur pied pour faire en sorte que les thèmes, les activités et les résultats du G7 tiennent compte des perspectives et des expériences uniques des femmes. En même temps, c'est une responsabilité qui ne revient pas seulement au Canada, mais bien aux pays du monde. Je pense entre autres à la déclaration de Charlevoix qu'on a conclue avec nos partenaires qui partageaient nos valeurs et nos objectifs. Le Canada, l'Union européenne, la Banque mondiale et d'autres pays se sont engagés à investir pour faire de l'égalité des sexes une réalité. On doit absolument unir nos forces pour défendre ce que tout le monde dans la salle sait trop bien, que les droits des femmes sont des droits de la personne. C'est vrai au Canada et partout dans le monde. So let me be clear. Our government will always be your partner, willing to admit when mistakes are made and working very hard to build a better future for all our children. My friends, I know and you know that we can't take our foot off the pedal, not even for a moment. There's simply too much at stake. But Canada's leadership isn't going anywhere. We will be that strong voice, your steadfast ally, not just when it's popular, but always unconditionally. We will keep working with you to move forward and to build more sustainable, more inclusive communities and movements. So let us use this week to get inspired, to learn from each other, and to recommit to a brighter tomorrow for women and girls everywhere. Together we are stronger, and together we can change our neighborhoods, our countries, and our world for the better. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you very much, everyone.
It is a pleasure to send best wishes to this Women Deliver conference. Gender equality is essential to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and has been one of my top priorities. The United Nations must lead by example. I'm encouraged that we are very close to gender parity in our senior leadership for the first time in the organization's history. Our objective is parity at all levels across the whole system. We have a long way to go, but I'm determined to make it happen. Gender equality is essentially a question of power. We live in a male-dominated world with a male-dominated culture, and this is true in families, societies, and organizations worldwide. Changing this culture means challenging stereotypes and addressing power imbalances. All of us can be agents of change. How will you use your power? I say, let us use our power to build a world where women and men have equal rights, as well as equal opportunities to realize their aspirations to contribute to a better future for all. Thank you.
Our reception will begin after the high-level panel. La réception débutera après le panel de haut niveau. Now we introduce our high-level panel moderated by Lise Doucette. Maintenant, nous accueillons le panel de haut niveau animé par Lise Doucette. Nous accueillons le panéliste suivant. Our panelists include the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, His Excellency Honourable Uhuru Kenyatta, CGH President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defence Forces, President of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, African Union Gender and Development Leader and He-for-She Champion, Her Excellency President Sahle-Work Zewde of Ethiopia, UN High-Level Commissioner, Health, Employment and Economic Growth, Dr. Ala Murabit, environmental activist, the new now, Farwiza Fahan, and children's, youth, and women's rights activist advocate, Media Network on Child Rights and Development, Natasha Mwanza.
Bonsoir, good evening. Hashtag wow. A special greeting for our Muslim brothers and sisters. Tonight may be the sighting of the new moon, and so we join all of you in a blessed Eid celebration. And what a celebration it will be tonight. Mesdames, Messieurs, nos délégués distingués, Monsieur le Premier Ministre, distinguished presidents, and you, all of you, the power of us. Let's hear it. Us. Come on. Come on, you're here to deliver. Us. 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 Et le pouvoir, nous le possédons tous. Alors nous sommes au Canada. Encore nous. Nous. Oh, vraiment. Encore nous. Nous. We all have power as individuals, as leaders. But ladies and gentlemen, we meet at a time when the Global Index is telling us that the world is way off track. We will not achieve the goal of gender equality by 2030. Not a single country, même le Canada, is at the last mile. So tonight is not a time for statements. Tonight we will have a conversation to get all of you talking, to get all of us working. En commençant avec vous, Monsieur le Premier Ministre. 2015, you announced the first gender balanced cabinet in Canada. Why? Because it's 2015. Well, because it's 2019, and as you mentioned in your opening remarks, it's sometimes harder than we imagine. So please share with us some reflections on, in your 4 years in power, what has been the hardest thing of all to move towards gender equality?
Well, I think gender equality is hard because we have a world that has marginalized and placed barriers for women and layered on those barriers through intersectionality that requires a real, concerted, consistent, deep effort to change. And making sure that we had a gender-balanced cabinet was more than just making sure there's a few more women around the decision-making table, which was obviously extremely important. It was actually about getting a better quality of decision out of the federal cabinet. And that takes not just gender diversity, but full diversity. Having a cabinet that does a better job of reflecting the diversity of our country, first on gender, but then on a broad number of levels, allows you to have conversations that are much more inclusive. One of the things we say is that diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. And choosing to include and empower all these voices around the table to weigh in with each other, to challenge each other. I mean, it doesn't mean we all get along. Obviously, if you wanted everyone to get along, you'd pick a cookie cutter cabinet like there have been. You just have to leaf through the history books. If you want to challenge each other and be challenged and force yourself to learn and grow and figure things out, doing things differently, that's exactly what we get to do. But I think the kinds of things we've been able to do as a government have shown that having an incredible group of women around the table, just as strongly voiced as anyone else, is really important.
Well, you were also one of the first, you might have been the first world leader to describe yourself as a feminist. But it's been a tough year in some ways for you. You put tough women in your cabinet.
Absolutely.
We're all tough women.
Did you think I was going to choose weak women?
So share with us, the President of Kenya is listening closely. How did this change? How did this, and the President of Ghana, how did this change your feminism?
It increases my feminism. It continues to challenge and make us think differently about it. I mean, feminism and diversity and inclusion is not about making things easier. It often makes things a little more difficult. To have strong voices sticking up for different perspectives means you're going to get challenged, means you get to challenge back, and you get to try and figure out what the right path is forward, because no one person has the monopoly on all the right answers, regardless of their gender, regardless of their background, regardless of their position as Prime Minister. We need to work together, and having those honest conversations is great. And yes, we went through difficult times over the past few months, but I can highlight that we still have a gender-balanced cabinet, and every single one of those cabinet ministers is an incredibly strong voice for women, for their communities, and for their country.
So, bravo Canada, we have a gender-balanced cabinet, but bravo to Ethiopia, which also has a gender cabinet. And not just that, Ethiopia has its first female head of the Supreme Court. You are betraying your fundamental principle. You didn't listen. I said there was a female head of the Supreme Court. Yeah. And now I'm saying there's a female president. Please welcome Saleh Worgzadeh. Welcome to Canada. Soyez le bienvenu. Merci. You know better than anyone just how deeply ingrained gender inequality is in your country. It's even embedded in some of your traditional languages. What difference will it make having not just women in power, but being seen to be in power? Does it change perceptions? Can it even change the reality?
Well, thank you very much, Liz. I'm very happy to be here. Merci beaucoup. Yes, I'm very much humble for being the first female president of Ethiopia. I mean, it is... I mean, my coming here, I believe, has sent a very powerful message, not only for Ethiopia, for Africa, but for the whole world, that we have an unfinished business to do. I think it has also shown, I mean, my coming here is a direct consequence of the reform agenda that is being unfolded currently in Ethiopia. It has definitely changed the perception. It has changed the public opinion on what women can do. And it has shown that really it's possible. Having said that, I would like to also say, as you have said, we have a parity in the government, we have prominent women in many high positions currently in Ethiopia. But for me, the work has just started. We cannot be the trees hiding the forest. If people think that the job is done, then we have a big problem. When you are a pioneer and you are the first to do something, and I have seen it in my past lives as well, it's a door that is opening for you, and what you do is to make sure that this door remains open. But let me say that I'm really committed to make it irreversible, de faire bouger les lignes, to push the limit to what can be done in terms of gender equality and women empowerment.
Well, let's talk about one issue which affects so many around the world: child brides. Every 2 seconds, another girl, another child is being married. Every 2 seconds. In Ethiopia, as you know, 40% of young Ethiopian girls are married before the age of 18. That's a terrible statistic, but it's coming down. And people are working together. So where do you find the power of us in Ethiopia to deal with this kind of really fundamental problem?
Yeah, it's a fundamental problem, and if you ask me, I would have liked to have ended yesterday. This is something terrible. And if you see me here, sitting here, it's because I had the chance to go to school, to have education, and to have avoided all this. So this has definitely to stop. Having said that, as you rightly pointed out, it's one of the success stories. The number is declining, and we'll have to continue doing so. The main cause, the main reason for that, it's because it has been a combined effort. It has been a work that was done at the grassroots. And when we talk about women, this is where we have to go, about girls. The community, I mean, women at the community level has played a big role. Second, the education to elders, community elders, religious leaders has also contributed tremendously. The other thing is also the Parents Association within schools that are reporting those who are not coming to school if somebody is missing and so on. This is a very collaborative effort. I think this is a good example, a best practice that shows that if you want to change social norms, and social norms have to be changed, this is the way you will have to proceed. It has to be at the grassroots. I'm saying this because sometimes our commitments remain in conference rooms, so we have to go to the grassroots.
So Canada has a gender balance cabinet. Ethiopia has a gender balance cabinet. And there are 9 other countries around the world which have a gender balance cabinet. But my friend Pumzile Malambo Ngugi, who heads UN Women, tells me that by next year, there can be 25 gender balance cabinets in the world. And she sees that it is in the African countries that show the greatest promise. Now we have the presidents of Ghana, and can you hear? I'm going to let you ponder that possibility for a moment, just to be polite since you're in my country. And I'm going to bring in Ala Morabit, Canadian physician. She's one of 17 advocates for the Sustainable Development Goals chosen by the UN Secretary General. I first met Ala Morabit when she set up the Voice for Libyan Women when she was just 21 years old. Ala, on parle de nous. We talk about us. Les leaders doivent-ils donner aux jeunes la possibilité de faire entendre leur voix? Vraiment, ils donnent ça?
I think when we talk about the power of us and, whether that space is there, the first thing I have to say is I don't necessarily think the space is ever given to us. That's the interesting thing about power. Usually you have to take it. People don't often want to give theirs up. And I think what I am seeing that is incredibly remarkable is a recognition, an increasing recognition, that if we are making policies and programs and having conversations without the people most impacted, without people who actually represent the communities where these conversations are relevant, where these policies will be implemented, they're never going to be sustainable. They will never last. We're all wasting our time. And I think we're slowly recognizing parachuted in ideas, parachuted in conversations, having these really exclusive conversations means that space doesn't exist. And I'm proud to say in the 10 years, since I was 21, in the 9 years that I've been doing this, the amount of panels that were about youth that only had one young person, or the amount of panels about women's rights, including women's reproductive rights, that only had a woman moderator, have completely disappeared, for the most part. And I'm seeing more young women say, listen, these are not gendered conversations. This isn't just about women's rights. They're showing up at security conferences. They're showing up at healthcare conferences. They're showing up everywhere and saying this impacts me and my leadership impacts the community. And that is what I think the power of us actually can and should mean.
And because it's 2019, is it getting harder? C'est plus difficile?
I actually do. I think it's getting more challenging in the sense that you are forced to hold on to your values in a unique way in today's political climate. I think we often, and sometimes we hide behind the idea of free speech or things like that, but we often allow for conversations to begin without recognizing where they'll go. So we start talking about abortion rights, and then we're surprised when people are saying women do not have a fundamental right to their own body. And I think as women's rights activists, as people who believe fundamentally in gender equality, there should be red lines. When we hear people start debating abortion, we should say, this is it, no. And we should have our strategy and have our facts and be prepared for the fact that our values will be challenged, our morals will be challenged, but that's a no-go zone. Universal health care is a no-go zone. Girls' education is a no-go zone.
Yes. Well, this is what Katia talked about in her opening remarks about the need to push back. And if you push back altogether, the pushback can be really strong.
Exactly.
Well, at 30 years of age, Allah is already a veteran. Coming up, though, is 18-year-old Natasha Chibesa Wengwasa from Zambia. 18 ans, encore an activist, a young journalist. All us journalists are quaking in our boots, using the power of the media to communicate. Natasha, welcome to Canada. You're a young female activist in a world of men who are a little bit older than you. Let's be polite. Do you really feel you have power?
Well, I think, like Alan has just mentioned, power is really what you decide to make of it. You have to get that power. And so, to respond to that question, I do feel I have power because I do demand for that power. I mean, look, I'm on a stage with the president, so... But yeah, basically, I think one thing that really has to be emphasized is there is no way that anything is going to be done for us without us, because that's just doing it against us. So key message is really, I'm just going to go right into it. Can I stand? I feel more powerful when I stand. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so... Key message is really that I have for every leader that's out here today. Do not do anything without us, for us, because one, we need young people in key positions of power. There is no way that you can be making decisions like she mentioned about young people's health, young people's education, young people's this, and then all you do is just let them be beneficiaries. We're not going to be beneficiaries. That's not happening anymore. It's 2019. So give us power. We need positions of power. And then secondly, I really want to talk about prioritizing things that have to do with young people and female empowerment. Look, it's enough that you can promise us that there will be gender equality. It's enough that you can say this and that, but we need this reflected. You can't have a national budget and adolescent health is amounting to 0.1%. That's not working. We need these reflections in things like the national budget, increase budgetary allocations to things that have to do with young people, increase budgetary allocations when it comes to gender equality and female empowerment. I hate that we call this thing child marriages. That's pedophilia. It's inhumane. These things have to be worked on and they have to be fought. We can't have girls being married off. We can't have girls not accessing education. We can't have girls not being able to take care of themselves every time of the month simply because of stereotypical behavior. No. We need gender equality and we need this reflected in national priorities. And then, you're making it hard for me to speak. I really want to emphasize is I love that the Prime Minister of Canada has emphasized how quality is what we're looking for. But you can't expect any girl on the street to be just there and then you ask her, what do you need? And you expect her to tell you everything. We need proper capacity building mechanisms in each and every country. Young people need to be empowered with skills, with techniques, with everything they need to make decisions that have to do with their health. It's not enough that you just tell us things and then we make informed decisions. We actually want those decisions to be acted upon, and we want to know that we ourselves have the power to take charge and influence whatever is going on in our lives. So capacity building is key. And then 2 more points, I'm sorry. One, we have one more thing, social accountability. I want to live in a world where I am not just assuming and watching the news and my president assumes what I want as a young person or as a girl. I want to tell him what I want, and I want him to tell me and promise me that he's going to provide those needs. So we need to bridge the gap between what we want and what is actually provided, and what is promised and what is actually done. Politicians can talk, guys, but action, no. We need to be able to hold them accountable. Ladies and gentlemen, we need proper mechanisms and channels to hold our politicians, the Prime Minister, the UN Secretary General, each one of us as well. We need to be held accountable for whatever we say and yet we don't do, because action is what we need right now. Enough talk. Let's go act and let's hold these people accountable. They owe this to us. And then lastly, last but not the least, I really want to emphasize on this. It's not enough that we have youth-friendly corners or youth-friendly spaces. Those are good, but then we should look at it at a global perspective. We need a global youth-friendly and responsive system. The whole globe has to bend to our needs, because let's be honest, we are the largest population. We deserve this, and this is going to benefit us. So invest in girls, invest in young people, and trust me, I am giving you this word. You can hold me accountable after this. Yes. I promise you, it will reap great benefits. Yes. Thank you.
Natasha, we all stand with you.
Thank you.
Especially so when if you seize the world the way you seize the stage, the world will be yours.
Thank you.
You honor us tonight by wearing your beautiful pink kente cloth from Ghana. The president of Ghana is listening very closely. Nana Akufo-Addo. He's thinking, why is she wearing kente cloth to talk to us about what we should do? You're listening closely. What is your response to Natasha? That she...
Well, let me say, first of all, how very privileged I feel to be here to discuss the issues.
Okay, just with the microphone. Yeah.
Ghana, the majority of the population... It's not coming?
It's on the other side.
It's not coming through?
Yeah, it's okay.
Is it better?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I fixed it for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The majority of the people in Ghana are women.
Yes.
52% of our population is women. So if we have to have an ordered society, to have a fair society, those statistics should count. They should be decisive in what is done. And they're going to be decisive when politicians like Natasha. Oh, she's a politician. She is a politician. I think that President Kenyatta would agree with me, and so would Justice Trudeau. She is a politician. When they are able to be where the decisions are made. Because at the end of the day, communities or groups talking for themselves and being representative does not translate into power. The most important thing is power, that you sit around the table whereby the decisions that you make are enforced and become the norms and regulations by which the society lives. So I think that is the, for me, what I've seen in the 2.5 years that I've been in office, that not enough movement is being made by the 52% of the Ghanaian population that are women to be able to be in the position to make these decisions. The cabinet that I had, some 30-odd% of them are women.
30%.
30%. It's not good enough.
So next,
it doesn't
20%
reflect,
more next year.
Well,
yes.
And as if they re-elect me, we'll see. But
if you campaign on that, they might.
Is that push that is key. And we are not, it may sound for the ears of people like Ella very reactionary. We're not seeing enough dynamism and activism on the part of those who are seeking this new... Why not?
I have to respond to that.
No, yeah, we're not. I'm talking about dynamism where it matters.
When was the last time you saw a dynamic head of state?
I'm saying those dynamic is not sitting around here talking. I'm talking about electing people to parliament, controlling political parties, because they're the instruments by which our societies make decisions. We're talking about decisions, not wishes and hopes. We're talking about decisions. It is decisions that is going to make the difference.
But let's not put all the problems, all the responsibility at the door of women. Let's look at the men who hold them back. Let's look, you are a he for she champion. What have you been doing to change the attitudes of the men, even of yourself, to get women into those to help women to get into those positions of power?
Several things. I mean, the He for She campaign in Ghana, for instance, has meant that in the last 18 months we've recruited some 5,000 young men as part of that campaign as a basis for sensitization. That is absolutely, 5,000 so far. Then much more is required. But the campaign has just begun in Ghana. So that's an important first step. There are other initiatives that have been taken in education. We now have a free senior high school policy in Ghana, which means that all education at the secondary level is open to all, especially to the young girls. They have an opportunity to go to school, and we're seeing the impact of that in communities where women have been held down. The girls now have the opportunity to go to school, and they're taking that opportunity. You're talking about the structure of our national health insurance scheme, which is a first step towards a universal healthcare structure in Ghana. And girls under the age of 18, pregnant women, all of these benefit from that system without paying free of charge, unlike other groups. So there are specific policies that are being made to encourage and also push the society along this. Key among them are symbolic things like the first female chief of staff has been appointed by me in our history. We never had it before. The first chief justice has been succeeded by another chief justice who is female. We have got something like close to 100 people within the governmental structure, all of whom are women. And these are symbolic, but also very meaningful decisions that have to be taken. But I will come back to where I started. At the end of the day, the changes that have been made, the changes that have been made in the world have been made by political action, whether they're in the form of revolutionary action or they'll be made by way of normal evolutionary democratic action.
That must be a very big definition of what political action is then.
Political action which
women
brings
working
about...
in their communities working together.
All of that is political action, but you're looking for using the levers in the society that allow you to get control of the process of decision making. If you can't make the decisions, you're not able to enforce the views that you want. You can create the atmosphere, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to make the decision. He has made the decision.
President Covado, I think, what do you think? Women deliver? We give you A+ for effort, but next year we want to see the results.
We'll see.
I'm going to give you just a half a phrase.
Well, I think you and I need to have dinner. But what I genuinely think is important is this is a sentiment that's shared by a lot of people. And it's fundamental that we begin to understand and we begin to explain in a way that people can actually understand how much systems have been shaped to ensure that women do not get to be in positions of power.
Yes.
Because it's incredibly important to recognize that there are dynamic, incredible women that the door remains closed to. And
how is it going to open?
But that's
how is it going to open?
I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
You're not telling me. I'm telling you. What you're saying will not open the door.
Stop talking over me and I'll tell you.
What you're saying
We need
will
some
not, will not.
democracy. We need some democracy on this panel.
I think it's
How's it going
important.
to
Okay.
It's incredibly important for male allies in positions of power, like yourself, to look around and recognize the impactful, incredible, dynamic women in their communities and amplify them, not empower them because they have agency, but amplify them and put them in positions of power. That's how it changes. It's on you too.
So Allah has invited you to dinner, and Natasha's coming to visit. And Monsieur le Premier ministre, si vous voulez ajouter un mot simplement, un mot.
You know, as I'm at various summits and talking with some of my colleague leaders, often they say to me, "Oh, it's great that you did that, and I'd like to do that, but I can't do that. We just don't have the right, selection of MPs that I could pick from cabinet." And I have to remind people that before it could be 2015, it had to be 2014 and 2013. And we set out with the rebuilding of the Liberal Party of Canada a campaign to ask her to run, to get out and recruit women, to look at barriers. Miriam Monsef, who's here, I begged her on the phone a number of times before she said yes to run. You have to talk and engage. If you ask a man if he wants to run for you, his first question is, "What took you so long to ask me?" If you ask a woman to run for office, her first question is, "Really? Do you think I'm strong enough? Do you think I should?" And she's got a CV as long as your arm. The fact is, we need to reach out as allies and empower women and break down barriers and get them to run.
How many of the women here are running for office? How many of you? There. Come on, that's it. Look at them in the front row. By the end of Women Deliver, there'll be many more of you. Poor President of Kenya. He's quaking in his boots. President Uhuru Kenyatta, welcome to Canada. You're in your second term as president, so the voters liked you enough to bring you back. And 2017, you said, and I quote, "I am convinced to reach Africa's shining destiny of prosperity and security for all, we must simply have women as," what did you say?
We must simply have women in positions of authority.
Equal partners.
Equal partners.
Equal partners.
Yes.
So, how has it been the last 2 years?
Well, it's not been easy, but we've made a start.
So share with us. We all want to learn from your experience. What's been hard?
I think the first and most important thing that we've got to recognize is the societies that we live in. And the societies that we live in, the cultural and sometimes religious obstacles that women have to face. And it's a question of how do you break this down? And the only way to break it down is by creating opportunities so that you can show that women actually can deliver. And in my first term, what did we do? We gave women, for the first time in the history of Kenya, an opportunity to serve not just in government, but in positions that traditionally were never held by women. We had a woman Minister of Defense. We had a woman in charge of the public service. We had a woman in charge of foreign affairs, a woman in charge of health. As a result of that, in my second term, 2 of those women were actually elected governors in their respective states because people saw the capacity and the ability of these people. So I think the first and most important thing is opportunity. The second is education. And we in Kenya, during my term, I have instituted now compulsory primary and secondary education. And the word compulsory is there to ensure that it is about every child, not just about the male child or the female child. It is compulsory primary and secondary education for all the children of Kenya. And we are also going to make it punishable by law for parents or societies that don't take their children to school. So that in itself creates and enables women access to education, which is the basic entry in order to become participatory citizens. Secondly, it will also go a long way towards ensuring this issue of child marriages is also dealt with. Because if the girl has to be in school, there is no room for somebody to be married off at an early age, because you must be through all the way to secondary education, in which case in Kenya, you must be over 18 before you can even engage in any other sort of situation. So these are just some of the things that we are doing to encourage, but also in order to keep our girls in school. We've gone again another stage further of saying that as government, sanitary towels are provided for free to all girls. And that is a government program, so that there is no stigma also, and we acknowledge and we appreciate. So these are just some of the things that we've been doing, and I do hope that at least by the end of my term, I will have been at least done what I could have done to be able to create those opportunities, so that by the time Natasha is coming, and I'm really grateful that I'm going home, because I wouldn't want to be able to, I don't think I could even compete with her. So by the time they're coming into positions of leadership, we have created that enabling environment that has allowed our societies to respect and understand that women are just as capable as men.
Yeah. Now, your distinguished colleague from Ghana, President Kuvado, has pointed out the importance of political power. So has Prime Minister Trudeau. Talk to us about your gender bill. It's sitting in front of your parliament, which says that no one gender should have more than 2/3 of your parliament. Mr. President, there's one gender which doesn't seem to want the other gender to have any space in the parliament. What could you do as president? You've pushed bills before to get that gender bill through the parliament to ensure that women do have a bigger place in the Kenyan parliament.
Well, let's look at it from this point of view. Our constitution says that no.
Exactly, it's in your constitution.
No one agency or no one gender should hold in any government position more than or less than 1/3, the 2/3 rule. We've been successful in the executive. Like I've told you, as far as the executive is concerned, we have managed and we have secured that.
Talk to us about the parliament.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
We don't have time, sir. We don't.
We have been successful in the judiciary. We have been successful in devolved government. We have not been successful in the national or parliament. And this is something that my government, my administration, we have put that bill through our National Assembly 3 times. We have advocated very strongly for its passage. We have had a lot of resistance from the National Assembly in its passage. This is a democracy. We are consistently, and in this regard, I must also say, as a democracy, we have worked in partnership even with all the opposition parties as well, who have joined ranks with us in pushing this particular agenda. We are not there yet.
Nor is Canada.
Yes.
Yeah. And in the same breath, we have to accept that this is a debate that must be ongoing, and we will keep presenting this bill to Parliament. We will continue to try and persuade our parliamentary colleagues that it is necessary for us to be able to pass this bill, because by so leaving such a huge section of our society out of mainstream body politic is basically like saying half your population is being left out of production.
Yeah.
And that means, as a country, we cannot grow at the pace that we desire to grow if we have left this huge segment of society out of decision making.
Exactly. And I'm sure, Mr. President, that you in Kenya too have a secret weapon, that you too have your own Natasha at home to help you get that bill through Parliament. And we wish you well. We will all be watching. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, an issue which affects all of us, every single one of us, our climate emergency, our climate crisis. It's also an issue about gender equality. And all the way from Indonesia is Farwisa Farhan. We made her wait so long. She came so far and she had to wait so long. She's the CEO of Forest, Nature and Environment in Aceh, Hakka. And she is marshalling the power of us, working together at community level to bring people together to save the ecosystem of Sumatra. Challenging their passion into power. So many here want to know how you do it. Can you give us some advice about how to work at grassroots level at so important an objective?
For us, power comes from the collective. We have seen too many of the I do this, I do that, too many of the superheroes. But in reality, sometimes we forget to acknowledge the support system that have enabled us to come to where we are. The forest, the ocean, and the environment is the life support system that support our society, support our economies. Issues, environmental issues, usually line hand in hand together with gender inequality, economic disparities, and ecological injustice. Women and girls are the most vulnerable groups when it comes to environmental destruction. When you see a gold mine using mercuries that pollute the river, it's usually mothers who get impacted because they start giving birth to deformed babies. But it's also women and girls who have the most power and decision. What can we do to address our environmental challenges? And I'm here today in such high-level panel with 4 heads of states. What an honor. I want to take this opportunity to make a pledge. Next year, we're gonna come to a convention on biological diversity. The UN have recently published a report that we will lose up to 1 million species. Extinction is forever. When we lose a species, we don't even know what it does to us. We probably don't even know the ecosystem function that the species serve. What will we do about it? Next year will also be an important convention on climate change. I'm asking all of these heads of state, will you be making enough commitment to address the sense of urgency when it comes to our environment? And essentially, I'm asking you, will you stick your neck out to save us?
Yeah, fair. When we talk about the power of us, we're talking about the power which comes from the grassroots, which comes from so many of you who've come all the way to Vancouver. We're also talking, and we've been talking tonight, about the power which comes from the leaders. Together, they can create the change that's needed. Farwisa, can you give maybe some insights that you've had about how working with people in positions of power and using your power in the grassroots, how you can make it happen in a faster and more effective way?
I learned that the most effective way to hold power into account is to strive to tell the truth, to always tell the truth when the vested interests trying to conceal those truths. When women or girls start telling the truth and keep retelling that truth, power comes to us. And people come to us.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, we bring this first panel of Women Deliver to a close, let me remind all of you that next year marks 25 years since the Beijing Conference for Women. The Action for Equality. And I've heard people here saying next year, the baton will be passed to the next generation. 25 years is almost a generation. Young people of Women Deliver, are you ready to take the baton? Yes! And now a final comment from our distinguished panelists. Comment utilisez-vous votre pouvoir? How will you use your power? Starting with you, Madame la Présidente.
Merci beaucoup. You know, I was trying to find some African proverb that would show what you can do as a person, and then because it's a collective endeavor. And I don't know if I remember it correctly, but it says, if you think you are too small to make an impact or to change, then you have not spent the night with a mosquito, which means, you know, there is so much you can do. You can nag to make things happen.
Yes.
But I agree with Natasha, power is what you make out of it. And personally, I would say that from where I'm sitting, the one thing I want to do is to really give visibility, to shed a light on the urgent issues that we have to deal with. The other thing is that to show that there is no template on how we deliver when you have power. And we are talking about women deliver. That you can deliver, but you can deliver differently as well. So, you know, the scope remains larger. And the other thing is that whatever you make has to be sustained and sustainable. I'm old enough to say that from what you have seen, the way we tackle some big global issues, there is a huge disconnect between the rhetoric of what we say and what is happening at the grassroots level. I think it's very important that we make sure that the issue of gender equality and women empowerment is handled better than what you have seen in whatever has been done to support our countries move forward. I think that this is something that we should be really aware of. This is too serious of an issue to just leave it to another century. It should have been dealt during the 20th century. The other thing is to really nurture and invest in future leaders. And I agree with what President Kenyatta has said. At the university level, we have to have many women who can graduate and be the leaders for tomorrow, because what we hear outside is we don't have enough women for that job. Thank you.
Thank you. Risa, you've already told us a little bit, but when you go back to Indonesia, to Aceh, how will you use your power?
You know, I work in this amazing place called the Loiser ecosystem, and it's the last place on earth that still have rhino, tiger, elephant, and orangutan roaming together in the wild. And the fact that it's the last place on earth makes me proud, but at the same time, it's a sad story because they used to roam everywhere. Last year, I had an exceptional opportunity to visit the Great Bear Rainforest right here in Canada and fall in love with this amazing ecosystem. But at the same time, on the way there, I see destruction, huge land clearing happening on land right here in developed countries like Canada. It's something that is a bit difficult for me to digest. Yet at the same time, it was also last year when the first time I visited Amboseli National Park in Kenya to see the Kilimanjaro. And I thought everything was fine until I checked the fact. And I realized that the ice cap of Kilimanjaro have melted so much, and it changed the ecosystem in Amboseli, and it changed the way of life for the Maasai people. And I know that each of us have challenges that we are facing, environmental challenges that each of us are facing in our countries, and it impacts the life of everyone, especially women and girls. And I think the way forward is to unite, offer the difference we want to make instead of the difference that divide us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Natasha, when you go home to Lusaka, to Zambia, how will you use your power?
Okay, so I know we're running out of time, but everyone has told a story, so I think I'll share one as well.
A short one.
Very short.
Yes.
So when leaving, I was explaining to my mom, she was driving me to the airport, and my young sister was in the back. She's 8 years old, and I was explaining how the conference is going to be so diverse, and over 80%, if I'm not mistaken, are not even Canadian. And as soon as my sister dropped me off, she hugged me and said, "Go change the world." And I looked at her and I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And so I'm really just going to use my power to, one, ensure that we actually do have this global world that's not just responsive to our needs as the youth, but it's also going to be sustainable enough to create an environment for my 8-year-old sister to come and be proud of what we've actually created. Let her come to a world and say, okay, so there was a Women Deliver conference, and now look at me, it's very easy for me to hold positions of power. So that's what I'll use my power for. And then secondly, I'm going to use my power to ensure that I represent young people and girls as much as I can. I think sometimes what we really need is a young person, a young girl like me, to prove to the world that we can do it. And even if that's something we need to get rid of, because we don't have to constantly prove ourselves to show that we have the power to influence ourselves, but then if I have to, I will. And so I will use my power to do that. And then thirdly, I'm going to sit down with decision makers, because I think it's high time that young people do take up this power. And if we really want this power as badly as I want it, I will fight for it. So I'm really going to use my voice to ensure that everyone else is here. Thank you.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, c'est une question difficile pour vous. Vous avez une élection en octobre, mais comment vous utilisez votre pouvoir?
D'abord, I mean, first of all, I think many of us are probably in this room looking at Natasha and saying, yeah, she's definitely the leader of tomorrow, which would be not understanding that she's a leader today,
yes,
right now.
Yes.
And that's what our young people are. One of the big focuses we've had as a government has been on empowering young people. We've put forward a national youth policy because I see power as a privilege, but also a responsibility, and ultimately the best thing you can do with power when you have it, and we all have it in different ways, is make sure you use it to empower those who don't have power. And that idea of empowering others to be able to be those voices, those shapers in their community, those agents of change that we need. The idea of fighting hard to accumulate power so then you can wield it because somehow you earned it and you have the answers and nobody else does, is an old paradigm that we absolutely have to shift. The idea of using power to empower marginalized voices, various activists, various communities that have been excluded from power for so long is the essential way that we will build a better community and a better world.
Thank you. President Kenyatta.
I want to be able to continue giving opportunity to women. Opportunity where women can be able to show that they can deliver just as well as men. That focus I will keep on with. The second is education. To ensure, like I said, that no child is out of school and every single child is through primary and secondary education, which I believe will deal with a lot of the social and cultural stigmas that we have. Because if it is by law, you can't take your child out of school, it means that we're going to be able to deal with issues of early marriage. It means we're going to be able to show that these girls have an opportunity over and above just doing household chores at home and looking after their older and younger brothers. And I think the third thing that I really want to do is to see that I end FGM in Kenya by 2022.
Thank you. Thank you. Ala.
You know, I think we can all agree there's often a lot of negative noise, and I think the most powerful thing that I have been doing, that I will continue to do, first and foremost, is amplify the voices and the work of people that are doing incredible things. And we do that in multiple ways. One is an emerging leaders lab that Wiza is one of our emerging leaders. And, you know, I so often have walked in to rooms and had, you know, heads of state and counterparts tell me, well, we can't find young women. We can't find young minority women. And so I decided to bring them all together, all the incredible young minority women I work with, to ensure that when somebody says that, I can say, oh, here's 50. Would you like her contact details? Would you? And create a community for those women, because so often they are the leaders in their community. When they are facing trouble, they don't have somebody they can go and talk to. And when we create communities with one another, we continue to empower each other through the difficulty. The second thing is amplifying organizations that are doing incredible work. I mean, in the time that we've sat here, over 1,200 girls have become brides. And that's an incredible number. 53 minutes, 1,200 girls have become brides. And there are organizations like Girls Not Brides that are doing phenomenal work, coalitions. When it comes to girls' education, the Malala Fund. I mean, we can support organizations that are doing work, and we can amplify that work, especially in a world where we hear so much negative news. And the third thing, which is incredibly personal for me, and I would argue probably for many young women in this room, and should be for every man as well, is I will use my power to continue to advocate for women's reproductive rights. We can talk a lot about education, we can talk about literally anything else, but if a young girl does not feel like she has power over her own body, to go up to her and say, well, you should run for parliament, is ridiculous. It is disempowering at the most personal level, and we have to advocate and demand for women's reproductive rights.
Last but certainly not least, President Akufo-Addo, what are you going to do with all of your power?
First of all, I think that the statement you made about Beijing, 25 next year, is very, very significant. I'm saying the statement you made about Beijing,
yes,
25 years next year,
yes,
is very significant. Many of the Ghanaian women who were in Beijing 24, 25 years ago are very prominent in the public life of Ghana today. And through them, because of that, the candle that was lit in Beijing is being kept very much alight by them. I think that's something very significant, because I keep coming back. How do we make change in our society?
How will you do it? How will you light your candle?
For instance, in Ghana today, there is an affirmative action bill that is before the parliament. The parliament is having a lot of problems with it because it is male-dominated. And I have to use the influence that I have to try and make sure that the bill becomes law in Ghana. It's not easy, but we're going to go and do it. But we'll definitely do it. And significantly too, I think that political action at the grassroots is also very, very important in what I see. In our system, local governance is in the hands of people we call district chief executives, municipal chief executives, metropolitan chief executives. It's important that as many of them are women, so the people down there in the grassroots can see the capacity of women to be able to change their circumstances. I've done a lot of that. Many of the appointees for these jobs are women, and they're doing an extremely solid and progressive work. So I think that there are lots of things that we can do with the power. And I'm hoping that by the time I leave, which I hope will be in 5 years, not 1 year's time, people will see that a significant change has come over the Ghanaian landscape as far as ensuring equality in our society is concerned.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen watching us online around the world, ladies and gentlemen down in the refueling station, ladies and gentlemen of Women Deliver in this room, are you going to use your power? Are you? When? When are you going to use your power? Now. The power of us. Thank you, presidents, activists. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you. And the power of Katya. Thank you.
Oh no, it's not all that easy. Thank you. Thank you, panel. Thank you, all of you. So the message we want the world to hear is clear. Nothing can stop our drive towards agenda. Would you sit down, please? Just wait 3 minutes, please. The message we want the world to hear is clear. Nothing can stop our drive towards a gender-equal world where rights and justice are the norm. It feels good to claim that power, doesn't it? We have to unapologetically own our individual power, and we have to use it to lift others up. We have to tackle the barriers we face from power structures, but also seize the opportunities, and we have to dive into that collective action, the power of collective action. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with power. We can't use it just to promote our own unique issues. We know that girls and women, to have true equality, we have to address economic and political participation, education, nutrition, environmental sustainability, gender-based violence, health, including sexual and reproductive health for all, and much more. And all these issues are interlinked, so our solutions have to be too. So we are gathered here because we all know that we have to work together to make it happen. Community advocates, elected officials, frontline change makers, academic experts, lawyers, DJs, and everyone. So many of us here and out there have worked to make this conference come to fruition. Now it's everybody's responsibility to make it epic. We got all the elements: the people, the passion, the desire, the moment, the money, the power. And I challenge all of you to go out and meet new people. If you know everyone in a room, you're in the wrong room. Go and introduce yourself to somebody new or 10 new people. And go and listen to something you know nothing about. Because that's how we make change happen, by doing things new ways. There's a lot of great things that are happening outside this center this week. We have the Canadian Pavilion, we have the Longhouses, we have BC Feminist Deliver, we have the library, and a lot of other events. Go and explore those. Now, with 8,000 people here, we have the opportunity to really get on each other's nerves. So I have a very important thought to you. Kindness is crowd control. Use your power for good and not just to get a seat in the plenary on a concurrent session. So before I let you go, I have some homework. And you're not going to get one of the delicious desserts if you don't do it. So go to this link. Can we get the link up? On the side, there's a link, there's a link. It'll also be sent to you. It's also accessible on the app. And we have 4 very simple questions. It'll take less than 2 minutes and it's fun. And then tomorrow morning, Anna Rosling Rönnlund from Gapminder will use your answers in a big visual presentation of what the state of women is right now. And she will weave it in, so be there at 8:30 or be square. When you leave this conference, I want you to have the answer to the question I asked you in the beginning, and that our great panel also got. How will you use your power? And I want your answer to be ambitious. Now go have some serious fun. And talking about fun, I am seriously pleasure. It's my serious pleasure to introduce to you an unstoppable powerhouse of music. a young woman who mastered DJing in just 5 days at the age of 9. The youngest person ever to win a Ghana DJ award. So ladies and gentlemen, let's dance it out. Erica Tador, DJ Switch, take it away.
Thank you. Women, the response is, we deliver. Women! Come on, women! That was great. Give yourself a round of applause. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, all protocols observed, good evening and greetings from Africa and Ghana, my beloved country. I'm here to switch up your mood, but before that, I humbly would like to share with you 3 key words: TLC. T for tell, L for listen, and C for clarify. T, tell. Allow us, we the young ones, to tell you our dreams, our hopes, our needs, our wants, and challenges we face regarding quality education, good health and well-being, and also gender equality. L, listen. Listen intently to us. Because we are curious, we say things exactly the way we see them. And then C, clarify. Clarify what we say and understand us, and also build all the solution around us, because the future of my generation is what matters. Why? Because when we children are allowed to sit at the table and given the opportunity to talk, we talk to bring progress and also transform the society. Power to the people. Switch up.
Better now, I only say that 'cause you're not around. You know I never meant to let you down. Better now, I only say that 'cause you're not around. You know I never meant to let you down. Would've gave you anything.
Delegates to the opening reception downstairs in the fueling station. Nous invitons tous les délégués à assister à la réception de bienvenue au rez-de-chaussée dans la station de ravitaillement.
Welcome to Women Deliver
Thank
2019.
you.
I'm Lucia with Good and Upworthy. What's your name?
My name's Jennifer Alcorn.
Okay, and where are you here from?
I am here from Seattle, Washington.